Well, good evening, one and all. Thank you for joining us once again. Do let us know if you're there in the comments. It's good to see a few of you already there. Reese, hello, Risa, hello, Mark. Good to see you guys joining us on the live stream once again. And thank you for joining us all for this Burnley live preview show. So, firstly, before we get to our guest, just a small announcement. We've hit a small milestone. In fact, we've reached 8,000 subscribers over the past week or so without actually uploading any content. So thank you so much for contributing towards that. We're back after this little break, and I sound a little bit under the weather, to be honest. I've been to China recently, or the Far East, and I can't shake this bug for some reason. I don't know where it's come from, how it's come from, but anyway, joining me, thankfully, on the other side of the screen. No contagion this week, but Ben from the Archers Road End, and now occasionally on the Southampton Fan Show on Love Sport Radio. How are you, mate?
I'm good, Freddie. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, we're okay. We're plugging our way with the hot lemon to try and shake this off before the weekend. I'm currently not match fit. Too much holiday time.
No, I mean, I'm a long way from match fit as well. I've been trying out new restaurants near where I live, so I'm a long way from it. And unless you're kind of talking about like a 1960s, 70s player's diet, so well off for the pace.
And we've got plenty to discuss as well. Of course, before we get into the meat of things tonight, do of course let me know if there's any technical issues, if I'm too loud, too quiet, my guests are too loud, too quiet, etc. Do let us know. Get involved in the comments. All right. Firstly, big shout out then to Morgan. Thanks for the comment on 8,000 subscribers. Hello, Marlon. Good to see you again. And there you are, Reese, and mark your comments on screen. There you are, Kieran. Good evening to you as well. I mean, we've got two games to actually quickly discuss before we get to Burnley. We didn't do a live stream for Tottenham, so I guess this is a chance to quickly, briefly, remember what was left of Liverpool. 4-0 at Anfield, though. No friends at Anfield. It wasn't a 4-0 result.
No, it wasn't a 4-0 result. It was one of those results, and we come to the Spurs game as well, where normally as a Saints fan, when you're kind of coming off the back of two defeats in a row, you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh God. But I think the performances in both games, and in particular the first half at Anfield, we were fantastic. I think, having spoken to a few Liverpool fans after the game and a few friends up there, they said that probably it's the best half that they've actually seen the team, play at Anfield this season, which is nice. You can say what you like about Liverpool, and many people do, but that's an excellent team, and we held them really well. Obviously, wasn't enough. The floodgates opened somewhat in the second half. Wasn't helped by VAR again. But I don't know. I mean, VAR, VAR, whatever you call it, I think it's just pushed. I've said this so many times. It's pushed the mistakes further up the chain. Ultimately, we've got all this fantastic technology, but it's like dogs in space, really, isn't it? You can put a dog in a space shuttle, but it's not going to be able to operate all of the technology around it. And I can just picture a load of border collies at Stockley Park making the decisions, really. So,
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things you've already picked up on. I think, to be honest, I think we did earn a little bit of the respect from the Liverpool fans in that first half. We battled. I think we were brave for most of the game as well. Right, let's get to the VAR, though. Danny Ings, no penalty. There was clear and obvious contact on his leg as he goes over in the penalty area. And it's just a bit of a sucker punch, really, as Liverpool take the ball down the other end, open their account for the afternoon. But I guess the consolation, too, that is that we were still asking questions at 2-0 down later on.
Yeah, we were. We were still pushing on, and and I think that's credit to Ralph's tactics and how he's kind of instilled a lot of confidence in the boys, really. He's on in his settled formation, and the players all understand what they're doing and what's expected of them now, which they didn't have earlier on in the season. And I think it's really starting to shine through, especially in a kind of a few performances that we're seeing. We're seeing players like Redmond, and of course Danny kind of really coming back into into form and good time, and a good time for them as well with the Euros coming up too.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it didn't help us with the goal difference. I mean, we've been chipping away, kind of recovering most of it up until that weekend at Anfield. But let's brush that under the carpet for a little while now.
We're not allowed to mention that anymore. We can't mention. I think at some point, I mean, at some point, we're all going to have to kind of hold some kind of wake for that 9-0 defeat, aren't we? And just kind of put it away for good. So. Yeah, but it did knacker our goal difference again.
Well, shall we dive into the Spurs highlights then?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Right, Spurs 3, Southampton 2 in the second, the replay of the fourth round of the FA Cup, and this was the second time in a week that VAR was missing in action. Now, this was a clear and obvious error by the referee, clear and obvious dive. He's been watching some of Tom Daly's DVDs, or Pete Waterman, for those of the Southampton folk. But there was obviously no contact. I mean, Son, he cons the referee here. He's going down before Gunn even makes the contact. Okay, looking back at it about 100 times. I've seen it down in slow motion. He makes a little contact, a brush on his shorts as he's going over at 45 degrees. A cheat.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's the softest of soft penalties. People can argue about it all day, and I do have to give Freddie credit for his pun because he's the pun master. But one thing I'll say, it's just soft. These penalties are so soft, and it's really been a tale of two penalties. It was really a tale of two penalties that week. It was amazing listening to opposing fans, Tottenham fans, try and bend over backwards to say that was a penalty. The Gunn patting him on the leg. Now, I'm not sure if I had a conversation with somebody saying that Gunn patting him on the leg or brushing his leg is akin to dragging him to the ground, but I don't see how that can happen. It can be argued that he kind of seriously disrupted his route through to goal, but when we were kind of having this conversation on the Southampton Fans radio show last week, it was Jason Dodd said, why was he on the ground? Why was he heading towards the ground before any contact was made? That shows to me, regardless of what contact there is, and there was contact, albeit marginal contact.
Yeah.
Referee should be looking at what's the intent of the player, and the intent of Son there was to deceive the referee, and it was ridiculous because if he would have stayed on his feet, he would have been around Gunn, and the ball would have been in the back of the net. Yeah. And what we would have said that we could have had no complaints then as a fan base, because it was a great cup tie, and we were on the losing end of it. And if we would have went through and Son would have scored that goal, without going down, and we lost 3-2, you would have just had to say, okay, that's life. We can handle that. But the fact that he went down with a clear intent to go down, then there was, marginal contact. It was a ridiculous decision. I can't see how it was made, and I still haven't seen a decent justification for the decision.
So I'm going to throw Kieran's comment on screen here. I think he's got a good point. I think he says, I think VAR is needed in the Premier League, but the clowns behind it in the offices running it are ruining it. Some of the decisions like Son diving last week, Ings' penalty at Liverpool need to be called. And Ralph kind of reiterated this point. Well, in fact, he said it before the Tottenham game. He said it in his post-match interview at Anfield. He said that brave decisions need to be called. And to be honest, going to stadiums like Tottenham Hotspur, to Anfield, it takes a referee to put their ego aside and call it how it is. See it call it honestly.
Yeah, and I think the frustrating thing is with VAR is that when it was first kind of trialed, or first kind of used in competitions, it was a referee kind of pausing the game and going and have a look for himself, and the footage was being fed back through to him. Now we have this bizarre situation where the decision is beamed to, a panel of supposed experts to go over it in a fine-tooth comb. And I think anyone who's worked in any field would know that, decisions made by a panel of experts, often don't hold water. And I fully agree. I think that what it's done also as well, I think that sometimes with the referees, if they don't want to have to make a difficult decision, it's a way of them almost kind of negating responsibility. It's almost a way of them kind of, pushing responsibility further up the chain so they don't get grief for it. Yeah. But I think that all of the officials, I think the match day officials should be the officials for the game. I don't think they should have an external, an external panel of, tea sipping, men in suits deciding whether something was enough of a dive or not, or kind of consulting, or consulting a rule book. Let the referees do that. And also as well, one thing we've learned from this is fans are a lot more patient with mistakes now. I think that we realise now that referees are human and that they make mistakes, and I think we would much rather have contentious decisions that we can debate than have a load of ridiculous men in black, beaming down during the game and changing the path of it from outside the stadium.
So one thing that really annoyed me, in fact, Son, he rarely gets any grief because he's such a lovable character off the field. He gives mascots his jackets, he warms them up. He's a great character off the field, but he's starting to make a career out of conning referees, kicking out other players. Yet he gets away with it all the time because he's not that type of guy.
Well, the Crays were nice to their mum, weren't they? So ultimately, you can kind of look at it like that. He gets away with a lot. Some of the tackles he's made, some of the things, and he committed what is an absolute pet peeve of mine before the penalty, which was the waving of the yellow. That's the worst thing. Yeah. I absolutely hate that. It throws me back to France '98 when England went out of the World Cup and Beckham Beckham kind of stuck his boot out, and I just remember all the Argentinian players kind of grouping around doing this, and then Beckham getting sent off and Batistuta going, yes, that's the right decision. And I was like, come on. I mean, it's pathetic, and I think that if someone does that, they should be booked. But once again, I think it's referees not displaying the requisite cojones to be able to handle those sort of decisions.
I think we've spoke about Son a bit too much now, to be honest. Let's brush that aside as well. To be honest, Ray, I have seen your comment. I'm trying to weave it in somehow. And I guess if we just a final note on this goal and at the end of the Tottenham game, it was a bit calamitous, really. Watching a bit of a comedy sketch show as the ball kind of slipped through Vestergaard's legs. And Ray adds the comment: how are we feeling about Yoshida, and how do we cope with the lack of centre back options now?
Well, I think that with the loss of Yoshida, we're gonna see Danso move into kind of, that backup role, playing his preferred position. It can't be Vestergaard, though. It can't be Vestergaard. He's a liability. Every time he plays, win or lose, there's a moment where you think, oh, he's gonna cost us something. Very early on in the Crystal Palace game, giving the ball away straight away. The lad's got the turning circle of the Titanic, and completely immobile. He's a baffling buy, really, because he's a tall player who's not very good in the air. He's slow. His decision making is questionable. I think that it's flown under the radar because of Carrillo, but I would honestly say that Vestergaard is the worst signing we've made over the past 3 or 4 years. without a shadow of a doubt. I have seen it. I've seen him. I don't know. Can any Southampton fans out there kind of tell me if Vestergaard's had a good game for us? Because I don't think he has.
Well, we'll get some of those responses in the comments. Hopefully, people will interact with it as well. But let's talk about the positives then coming out of the Tottenham Hotspur game. Let's talk about the goals then. Shane Long, it was Redmond's turn of shot. I mean, he was the key player actually on that Wednesday night. Redmond with a fantastic run later on as well to drive forward, to set up Danny Ings, cutting inside a couple of defenders. Great ball across the field, and then Ings fires it past Lloris for the I guess at the time, to go ahead in the game, and along on the score sheet as well. Great to see him get on there. He goes in between sort of 5 or 6 games without scoring, and it was a simple a goal at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that Long, Shane's been excellent this season. I think that he hadn't scored in 5, but he brings so much more to the team than just scoring goals. I think that he's one of those players that just absolutely people might not realize it, but it's not for his goal threats that defenders don't like playing against Shane Long. It's because he's so dogged, he's so determined, he's on their back, he's always pressing. He's kind of a pressing machine. And it benefits people like Danny Ings because Danny can kind of feed on the scraps, and Shane can, occasionally pop up with a finish, So he's a great player to have in the team, and if the news about his contracts to be believed, then he's going to be around for a bit longer. He's a great player for someone like Che Adams to learn off of, and he's a good option to have.
Yeah, I believe it's 2.5 years. Some of the rumours are suggesting, and that would see him through to about 35. And I think they would be the elder statesman of the team. I think he's one of the oldest right now that Yoshida's obviously left. So I think I wouldn't go as far as saying perhaps he might end his career at Southampton in 2.5 years' time if he's obviously going to sign that extension. So let's go back to our comments on Vestergaard or Hoot. Raul says it doesn't jump with his height. Not asking him to be long, but jump. Shierski adds Leicester apparently saw something in him in the January window. Of course, that emerged at the end of the month, but it's not sure what we saw. I think that was pure agent gossip.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I've seen. I think that if you look at Vestergaard and who. I mean, barring, Wesley Hoots, questionable attitude, which is what's probably got him into trouble more than anything else at the club. He's arguably a better player. He's a better option than Vestergaard.
Controversial.
Yeah, it is controversial, but that's because Wesley Hoots not a likable. It doesn't come across as a particularly likable person. But yeah, I'd probably say he's a slightly better defender than Yannick Vestergaard, which isn't necessarily kind of a credit to Wesley. I think it's more of a negative to Yannick, really.
Well, Marlon adds it's even more baffling that we wouldn't sell him for more than what we bought him at 18 million. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, he hasn't cut himself in glory, has he? He hasn't nailed down that first team place since he's signed on the dotted line a couple of years ago. He hasn't really added himself any more value, but I mean, it might be difficult, sort of moving forward as well. And Ralph wasn't really happy with the defending to allow us to lose that game in the FA Cup. Redmond added that perhaps it was complacency that we lost the game.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can kind of spot with Southampton teams. Sometimes we can fall into a trap of kind of sitting back a little bit too much, or maybe kind of thinking the game's wrapped up. But you must never do that, because even though we're playing against Tottenham, and Tottenham are meant to be one of the historically unlucky sides. I mean, look at us. It's a cup game, but look at the amount of points that we lost through winning positions. that translates. You're not a completely different side in a cup competition, so you can never be complacent. And I think it's a big lesson to the players losing that game, because yeah, you're right. We shouldn't have lost that game when we were in that position. There's no excuse. We played well, but yeah, we let complacency creep in, and I'm sure that Ralph will kind of be drilling the players on that, and I'm sure that's the first thing that they mentioned.
Well, Jose Mourinho admitted in the post-match interviews the best team lost. I don't know if that's a hollow statement or it's one of these PR, stunts. But I don't know what we can believe. But to be honest, I mean, we didn't come out of this game unscathed. A huge doubt over Ward-Prowse now heading into the weekend against Burnley. Of course, at the time, watching it on the in the stadium on the TV, we feared the worst. Feared the worst. It was quite a lengthy treatment of about 5 or 6 minutes, taking oxygen, going off on a stretcher. Although we find out in hindsight after the game, it's not as serious as we first thought. It's only a deep cut. Apparently, you could see the bone. It's not so much of a serious injury. But what do you think of his chances to recover in time for the weekend?
Well, I think he's been excellent. He's been another player who's been great this season. I think, since the result, since our kind of disaster, he's been one of the players who's kind of moved on, and I think he brings a lot more to the team than just kind of his set pieces. I think that he's added a bit of kind of determination and a bit of bit of bite to his game. He's not afraid to wind players up, which, as we saw at Selhurst Park. I'd love him to be fit, but I also can see the logic in not necessarily risking him. If he's not 100% right, then I would say leave him out. But he's a fantastic player. He'd be a loss. But yeah, if he's not fit, then there's no point.
It was up until that point he'd played every single minute of every game this season for Southampton, and as you say, he's added a bit of bite, a bit of extra steel to his game as well, rubbing up the opponents in the wrong way. He's now a pantomime villain in the eyes of Crystal Palace fans. So it'd be quite difficult to replace him. Where offers a lot of energy, going forward, coming back as well. Although he filled in at right back against Tottenham, and of course now we've got Kyle Walker-Peters in the team. Jan Valery has returned to training. So which one of those would start at right back at the weekend?
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Walker-Peters come in and play his first game. I think now's as good a time as any. He's had some time to get to know his teammates. I think that there wouldn't be much point in kind of bringing him in if he wasn't going to be kind of a ready-made start. We've made enough of those baffling signings, and frankly, I've had enough of them. So yeah, I'd bring him in. You'd probably be looking at kind of Romeo coming in for Ward-Prowse if he's not quite fit enough, which would change the shape of the game somewhat. Fewer forward balls, but we'll just have to see. How Prowsey's feeling, on Friday, Saturday.
I hope he makes the bench, because he's been an important figure in the team this season for Southampton. Offering more than off the ball as well. But I think Romeo, that would offer perhaps a scrap in the middle of the park at the weekend. I mean, Burnley are no strangers of a scrap. They've been quite bullish. I think they're starting to become a bit of a build themselves a bit of a reputation of being bullies. I mean, I'm listing off a names here: James Tarkowski, Ashley Barnes, Chris Wood, Bardsley, Ben Mee, Ashley Westwood, all bullish kind of players that aren't afraid to stick the boot in.
Yeah, I'm worried for Danny Ings on Saturday, if I'm honest. See if Ben Mee's playing. Seen some of his tackles this season. They've been scandalous. The one that put the lad out from Aston Villa, and that just worries me when I see stuff like that, because lots of people say it wasn't a foul, but it was hugely reckless, and I just see that sort of play, and I think I don't like to see it. you know, I think there's an art to defending. It's not necessarily, you know, and I think that football, yeah, it's a full-blooded contact game, but I think some of the blood and thunder stuff goes a bit too far with Burnley sometimes. And you know, Romeo might be good to have in for that scrap. You know, Burnley aren't a team renowned for their, you know, for their kind of, you know, deft play in midfield. So yeah, and you know, as Morgan says down there, Barnes always scores against us. So it's going to be a physical game, and I think that you know, a lot of what we're going to be doing is going to be kind of relying on, you know, if we go full on into a scrap with them, then it's not going to be a good game. But if we have Romeo there, in, you know, just as a little bit of an insurance policy, sat in front of the defence, it might free up Connor Højbjerg and a few of the other players to create further up the pitch.
Well, one lad that is now firmly found his feet at Burnley, you know, a player that we obviously know quite a lot about, spent a few years here, scoring lots of goals, played for England whilst he was still here, Jay Rodriguez. You know, is he the type of player that you sort of want him to do well? I mean, it's a bit of a romantic deal for him to go back to Burnley, back to his hometown. And he's pretty much their talisman this season. You know, Barnes and Woods have also been kind of flanking him either side. That's a target man, throwing elbows, jumping up for every ball in the air. So Jay Rodriguez is the man to watch the weekend, I think.
Yeah, I think he'll you know, he'll certainly be troubled. I mean, you know, we can't kind of, you know, skirt around the fact that, you know, he's never been the same player since that injury. You know, he's lost a yard of pace and definitely kind of lost a lot of dynamism. Easy for me to say from this game. But it's nice to see him back. It's nice to see him doing well. Just not against us, please.
Just not on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've mentioned kind of Ben Mee absolutely flying into tackles, scandalous tackles. You know, it would suggest that maybe defenders are looking to double up on Danny Ings this season. You know, 17 goals in our competitions now. Here's a statistic as well: the most for a top flight Saints player since James Beattie, since 2002-03 season.
Yeah, and he's been absolutely exceptional. I mean, from the first moment we saw him back at the club, you know, you just watch him and yeah, he's a goal scorer, but he's such an intelligent player as well. He knows where the space is. Very rarely makes errors. With, you know, you don't see him misplacing passes. You don't see him, you know, kind of being sloppy. You know, he's just on it all the time. And I think he's the closest thing that I've seen in a long time at Southampton to a complete striker that we've had. You know, maybe since Lambert, really. You know, Ricky was fantastic, but I'd say, you know, even on a, Ricky's obviously a legend, but Danny Ings has just got this intelligence to it, and real kind of, you know, spark and energy to him that I think he really is someone who, you know, we're very lucky to have him. And long may that continue. But I just, you know, fingers crossed he can stay fit. I think he's at the right place for his career, really.
He scores all types of goals: left foot, right foot headers, you know, tap-ins, smash-ins, saw against Tottenham, you know, goals that don't exist, you know, were ruled out for offside or fouls in the build-up as well. Pella, all-round player as well. I think Pella was more of a target man. Similar respects to sort of Lambert in some cases, but Pella was mainly the focal point of the, I guess, the directness under Ronald Koeman. And great relationship he built with Dusan Tadic as well. Talking of relationships, Danny Ings has been linking up pretty well with Nathan Redmond. I'm trying to find the comment from where has it gone? It's gone too far now. He was a confidence player. There he is, Morgan. Redmond's a confidence player. He's in such good form right now. Hopefully he can keep it up for the rest of the season and potentially go on to the Euros. Now, Nathan Redmond, slow to start this season. You know, had a bit of criticism up until around October, November, but now he's starting to find his feet. a fantastic drive and runs, showing his skill, and now deciding the right time to release the ball, because we found ourselves frustrated for most of this season, hanging on to the ball for too many touches.
Yeah. I think the Redmond struggles with consistency. I think that's the biggest what if with him. If you had a consistent Redmond, he'd be, he'd be a player that the top six would be looking at, if we're honest. But he kind of, it's very interesting, because I think that you always get a half of a brilliant season out of Redmond. You don't get a whole fantastic season. So, he was excellent for us towards the end of last season. And he's coming, he's coming good again now. So it's a good time for him to do it, but he doesn't seem to fancy it from August to December. That's all. I think if he adds that consistency to his game and becomes a year-round player, then I think that it's going to be great. I still think that England is a little bit of a step too far for him at the moment. I don't think he has the consistency that some of the other players have got in positions that he's fighting for. But I think that if he can continue his form next season, then I don't see any reason why not, and it's good for us, really.
Well, I wouldn't put it past both of them, Redmond and Ings, to get a call up in the next England squad, providing, of course, they do stay fit until that point in March, at the end of the month as well. But this weekend, Burnley and Southampton playing for a top half position, at least until Sunday. And if we look back on the very first day of the season when we met, lost 3-0 at Turf Moor, wind, rain, miserable afternoon. And guess what's coming on Saturday lunchtime? Wind, rain. Hopefully not so much a miserable afternoon. There are also some doubts whether the game might not even go ahead.
Yeah, we've got another storm coming. So Dennis, Storm Dennis
the Menace, hopefully.
Oh crikey! No, I think that, fingers crossed, the game will go ahead. It'd be a shame to have to call it off, but like I said, flashback to the opening day of the season. Yeah, like Morgan says down there again, Burnley will fancy their chances because they're a team that love playing in kind of, scrappy, poor conditions. It suits them because they're not a team who get the ball down and kind of play it. So, we'll see what happens. It could be, sadly, a game where a mistake, edges it for either team, really, and hopefully it will be us. Because that game, the opening game of the season, was just bizarre because we played so well for about an hour and then we just absolutely collapsed. Just
a couple of comments on Ings absolutely flying in on perhaps in England call up. Harry adds deserves a call up for the desire and spirit, everything he's given this season. Morgan adds again, Ings and Ward-Prowse definitely deserve to be called up to the England squad. Right, back to Burnley. Will the Sean Dyche masterclass happen? I think they'll be feeling up for it, but hopefully Saints can blow them away this weekend.
Yeah, I think there were two teams. You look at that. This is the thing with kind of Sean Dyche. He knows how to set his team out, and he's not got. He won't sit there and try and get his players to do things that they can't do. He's a very pragmatic manager, and I think that those sort of managers are the sort of managers that we need to fear as a team, because the players are so well drilled and they know exactly what they're doing. Whether we like it or not is a different matter. It's worked very well for them, and I can't see their luck running out with that for this season. But I think we can win on Saturday. I definitely think we can win on Saturday.
Would take a draw this weekend. Burnley are definitely our bogey team. Yes, absolutely. Here's a statistic as well, folks. Saints have failed to beat Burnley in the last 6 attempts in the last in the Premier League fixtures we played them in, including I think it was a last-minute winner from Joey Barton a few years ago. The last time that we beat Burnley was in 2016. I think Jay Rodriguez was on the score sheet that day.
Yeah. I think that was was that home or away? I think.
Home.
Yeah, that was the one. That was the one where Forster had that horrible injury, wasn't it?
Was it that game?
Yeah,
2016.
yeah. Was it 2016? I think so. Yeah, when he did his ligaments. I could be wrong though. But yeah, no. I think it'll be. I think Burnley will beat us for set pieces as usual. Well, yeah,
They are dangerous at set
they
pieces.
are.
I'll give them that. Mark also adds to take a draw. Wouldn't be a disaster.
I wouldn't.
Will adds Chris Wood turns into Messi every time we play them. Messi with flying elbows.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's going to be absolutely. Yeah, I mean they're a nail house team. They're going to be kind of brawling their way across the pitch, and we're just going to have to do our best to deal with it. I think we'll win. I think a draw will be good for us. It's definitely not going to be a 0-0. I'll kind of I'll kind of state my claim there. Don't think it will be a 0-0. Something's going to happen in the game. So in the game, if there's any other team with these conditions, I'd say it could be a cagey one. But we love conceding goals and we love scoring goals, and Burnley seem to know their way through us. So we'll see what happens.
You've opened a can of worms in the comments, Ben. People are starting to comment with their score predictions. Morgan adds 2-0 or 2-1 Saints. Raul adds set plays, Romeo and Burnley. So is that a prediction that Romeo's going to score from a set piece and Burnley also going to score from the set piece? Let us know. Give us another comment down there. Harry adds, if Jay Rodriguez will score against us, will he celebrate or do a kind gesture?
I think that if a player wants to celebrate scoring a goal, then I don't think that necessarily means that he doesn't have any respect for the team. I think that it shows that he has respect for the team that he actually plays for. If you celebrate a goal, I'm not too hung up if a player celebrates too much. I think there's a world of difference between a player enjoying the fact that they've scored a goal and Emmanuel Adebayor running the length of the pitch to wind up some Arsenal fans as he did that time. That's completely different. I think it is part of the game, and as fans, we give players so much stick on the pitch. Yes, they get paid a lot of money, but they don't always deserve the amount of abuse they get. So, when I see a player, going away to a club that they used to play for, getting stick for the whole game, you can hardly blame them sometimes if they kind of score a goal and they're just kind of, maybe kind of cup an ear or do something back. I think it's not, within reason. Players enjoy playing football and don't take, we shouldn't try and take that away from them because they provide us with so much entertainment.
Right. Okay. Let's try and wrap up the show with some score predictions then, Ben. You've already lit the fire. Harry's gone with 2-1 Saints. Ings and Shea Adams finally to score. Jay Rodriguez to score for them. Do you know what? That wouldn't be such a bad, if you're a betting man, perhaps a reverse win cast, Jay Rodriguez to score, Saints to win. That's where my money's going. That's quite an interesting bet. But having said that, I really don't like betting on games that I'm watching and attending. So I would be biting my nails, cursing, all sorts of things. But get involved, send us your score predictions, and we'll pop them up on the screen as well. Ben, what are you going for?
I am going to go for 2-1 Southampton. And I think that it'll be Danny getting a goal. Actually, no, I think Danny get 2. He could get a brace. I'm going for an Ings brace today on Saturday, and then Ashley Barnes, because it's Ashley Barnes.
So Raul's added to his comment later on, 2-1 for Saints. Just hoping their goal doesn't come from a Romeo foul. Okay, all right.
Probably will.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, he loves a scrap, and he went and as sort of Glenn. I don't know how many of you read Glenn's blog, League One -10, excellent blog. He went on a bit of a killing spree in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the Tottenham game, clattering into about 3 or 4 players, picking up a yellow card inevitably in the end. Right, Marlon's gone for 2-0 Saints. Fingers crossed. Will has added 2-1 Saints. To be honest, you know what I'm wishing for? A win, Danny Ings' goal, an assist from Ward-Prowse, hopefully if he plays, Redmond, and a clean sheet. because I've got those three in my fantasy team, and I'm starting to climb up the Southampton FC Podcast League. I was nailed to the bottom of the division or the mini league for about 6 months, but now, John, I'm coming for you.
That's it. That's it. It's all about consistency with fantasy leagues. So many people, they tail off in February, they tail off in January, February. You just got to keep going, Freddie. That's it.
Right, lineups as well. Oliver has gone for McCarthy, Walker-Peters, Bednarek, Danso. No Stevens, interesting. Bertrand, Ward-Prowse, Romeu, Højbjerg, Redmond, Gineppo, Armstrong, and Ings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 players. Can we get away with that?
Yeah, I've done that before. I actually did that on another podcast. So I've picked a 12-man team. Oliver, you're not alone on that. But I think Danso's a bit of a miss. I mean, Oliver, does Oliver know something we don't?
Do you think we'll get away with it if Kevin Friend is refereeing again on Saturday? He was clearly blind to the other decisions.
Yeah, we might get away. We might get away with 12. I mean, you know, I think you know, we just pick someone whose performances have been fairly anonymous this season, and they might just kind of sneak in there somewhere. But no, I mean, you can't have Danso ahead of Stevens.
Morgan's gone for McCarthy, Walker-Peters, Stevens, Bednarek, Bertrand, Romeu, Højbjerg, Redmond, Armstrong, Ings, Long. That is 11. To be honest, Oliver, I have just noticed that you have gone for a slash Ward-Prowse or Romeu. I guess on the extent of Ward-Prowse's gash on his knee and that. Harry adds, we have no Bednarek for this game. Somebody picked up this point on another podcast. He isn't suspended. He is free to play this weekend because the criteria has been reset. We have already covered Jan or Walker-Peters. A lot of us are going for Walker-Peters to start this game. Valerie actually had played 60 minutes for the under-23s in midweek. So there we go. Right.
We have to start him. We have to start him because, you know, you don't bring a player like that in and not start them. He's come here for game time and we need to.
Yeah, and Ralph also suggested earlier this week that Danso is going to play centre-back now that the shooter's obviously left. Will, to finish the show then, right, if Adam scores, it's going to be Limbs.
He's going to come good. Shay Adams will come good. I think he's a fantastic player.
Great stuff. Right, I think we'll wrap it up there then for this part of the show. And thank you so much for joining us on the live comments. And thank you so much, Ben. Where can we find you?
Archers Road End, just right there. There we are. Whoop.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, one and all. We'll catch up on Saturday afternoon for some fan reactions.